Do you think that this is it? Like indications, like you know how like when people are looking at stocks with the little like candlesticks or whatever, they look to see an indication for a rebound and a like it's gonna go up to the moon. Do you feel like that's what it's looking like for Pedro?
I think it is, and that's a good segue into our first agenda check of 2025. Yeah.
Oh my God, guys! It's been a year since we've done agenda check.
It's been a minute. It is our most popular segment on the show. We're looking for a sponsor for it. You know, if you want to sponsor the agenda check, hit us up. It's like an honor to sponsor that.
It would be an honor.
We're doing the sponsor a favor at that point. We're just kidding. First agenda check of 2025. You wrote this down.
Yep.
Pedro de la Vega's stock at an all-time high. I mean, I would say based on everything that we just talked about, that agenda is very much strengthened. You know, I don't want to go too crazy and have people saying that we're like guaranteeing that he's going to be an MVP candidate. But I think if I've just been watching the highlights this preseason, and even from those, like you said, it is a different player.
Yeah.
Like it's a healthy, fit, and motivated player who's in great form and who's he played out of his mind in these exhibition matches for whatever that's worth, which I honestly think coming off the season he had last year, to me, that is worth something. Right. I know a lot of people are going to say it's meaningless because it's preseason. Like, I don't think so. I think he needed a preseason exactly like this. And it's honestly like even beyond what I would have called a good preseason. He led the team in goals. The assist he had to Jordan Morris was excellent. So this agenda is honestly skyrocketing with the knowledge that it could come crashing down when the games actually start.
Yeah, he could definitely Icarus, but like I don't think that that's gonna happen. Like I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say that like he's gonna score a lot of goals and he's gonna be really good. And I think the only thing it obviously hinges on is, like we said, if he can stay healthy. And he doesn't look fearful anymore. I think that was something that I really took away from this, was like you could tell he was hesitant when he was playing after he came back from his injury.
It was in his
it was clearly in his head.
Well, the injury was in his head, but I think also the weight of expectations was in his head.
Right. And it's like you can't bomb any harder. You already bombed, you know, like people already feel how they feel about you. So fuck it. Play your game. Ball out. I think this agenda is super strengthened, and I'm excited to see what he does because, like, man, it's, you know, he could really truly be the next Evander. You know what I mean? You have a bum season and you turn it around, and then maybe he's going to be going to another club. Who knows?
Jeremiah said that according to his intel, the player that clubs globally contact Seattle about the most is still De La Vega, which I wasn't familiar with his pedigree.
I wasn't familiar with your game, Pedro De La Vega.
I wasn't familiar with his game when he was playing in Argentina, but he was a very, very highly rated prospect there, and I think a bounce back season like we're hoping for, and his name suddenly does shoot back into those conversations. The Sounders attacking soccer is back agenda. What is this, your personal agenda or general agenda?
This is just like, you know, we've been on the era of the Sounders defensive team. 2 years back to back of the best defense in MLS. Sounders attack is back agenda? Are we going to be an attacking club? Is this going to be less the defensive club of the year? I think so. I think Sounders attacking soccer is back. People have called you've heard this. People have called the ball of the last 2 years boring, uninspiring, slow, just not fun. I think it's going to be different this year.
I think that narrative, I see what you're saying. I think that narrative,
I don't agree with that narrative.
In my opinion, that narrative got a little overblown. It was totally deserved and merited for the first few months of last season, right? Where we recorded how many shows about it? Like how
there was a lot of L pods.
There was a lot. Well, there's L pods, but it was also even when they got results, it felt like pulling teeth.
Yep.
They weren't scoring a lot of goals. I think what happened is people latched on to kind of that narrative and the feelings that got elicited during that era, which I'm not I get it. Like we were as disillusioned as anybody, but I think a lot of people stuck to that that narrative when the reality is down the stretch of last season and into the playoffs, they were playing at a 2-point whatever points per game pace. They weren't 2019 LAFC, but they were scoring goals at like a respectable rate for an MLS club. And then they combined that with an elite defense and made a legitimately good run into the playoffs, almost made it to MLS Cup. So I think like the idea that they're this boring defense first team that didn't know how to score goals, I think that's a little overblown. I think that was more true at the beginning of last year than it turned out to be at the end of last year and into the playoffs. That said, I do think that there's at least reason to hope, based on what we've seen so far in preseason, that this attack can take another step even from where it got to near the end of last year. And they can, like, I would love to see them have the type of season, you know, maybe they might never have a season where they put up like 70, 75
right.
goals or something like that. But like a season where they're like, they're racking up stats like the Dempsey Oba days. And they like, remember how just electric they were to watch in those days? It was like appointment viewing watching those two guys every week. If either one of them got hurt, then it became, or like was out for whatever reason, became a different story. Yeah. But when those two guys were on the field, it was the most fun team in the league to watch. Like, I think everyone is just like itching and hoping for something like that this year because like, you know, I think that narrative was overblown, but there was definitely like reality to it at the first like 2-3 months of last year.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I don't know if we've talked about it a million times that it's okay to enjoy defensive soccer. We both do. There's a little bit of a different layer to it. It's not as exciting, but it is still fun and interesting. But I really
as long
do
as you win with it, I don't really have an issue with it.
Yeah, it's like you're grinding out wins. I think that like I saw some people say that, you know, if you score 5 goals and still lose, it's way more entertaining. I agree. I tend to agree with that. I don't want that to happen. No, I don't want it to be a complete flip-flop. But I think that like regardless of what's going to happen, getting some attacking soccer is going to be a breath of fresh air, and I do think that agenda is to the moon right now.
Best in the West agenda. I feel like that's also on pretty good standing right now. Outside of how Seattle has looked this preseason, there's just a lot of question marks, I think, going around the West right now. I think what's going to happen is like an unexpected team like Minnesota or Houston or something is going to turn out to be a lot better than we think, and that's going to throw a variable
Everyone was
into
saying
it.
San Jose, but they lost like 5-0 the other day.
I think the Quakes thing is it's excitement with Bruce. It's excitement about Chicho. I think the reality of a turnaround like they're trying to embark on right now is that it just typically doesn't work like one off season with the new coach, even Bruce Arena. Like all of a sudden you go from literally one of the worst MLS teams of the last 10 years into a playoff contender. I was talking to this about with Nico on the live stream. They gave up 80 goals, almost 80 goals, 78 goals last year, which is just crazy. So not to get on a Quakes tangent there, but what were you talking about? Oh yeah,
best
like,
in the West.
Yeah, there's like there's question marks surrounding both LA clubs. Frankly, I have very little doubt that particularly LAFC are going to be elite. I think they're going to be an elite club, even with the turnover that they've had. I think the Galaxy are honestly in an even dicier situation than LAFC. But again, I find it hard to believe that they're going to fall off all that much. But then you get to Salt Lake, Houston, Minnesota, Colorado, Vancouver, Portland. It's anyone's guess on how good or not good any of those teams are going to be. So
there's just been so much shuffling.
I think the Seattle being the best in the West agenda is a good agenda right now, more because of the question marks around everyone else than even anything about the Sounders.
The Seattle Sounders brand new 2025 kit is here. Inspired by 2 traditional Southern Coast Salish weaving techniques, twilling and twinning. These techniques, passed down through generations, honor the resilience, deep-rooted ties, and creativity that define the cultural fabric of this region. The striking deep blue jersey will be worn by the Sounders for the next 2 seasons to honor the club's deep connection with the Puget Sound and shared responsibility as stewards of the greater Salish Sea watershed. Backing up that commitment, the Seattle Sounders will donate up to $50,000 to benefit community charities around the Puget Sound region. To get your very own Salish Sea kit, visit lobbingscorchers.com/kit. That's lobbingscorchers.com/KIT. Well, I don't know if you saw, but that chart that we talked about last time, the percentage of minutes returning, the rankings have updated since there's been more transfer moves, and the Sounders are now second in returned minutes, just below Toronto still. And I think that's people. I saw the dumbest pundits out there. You can fill in the name, because I'm sure that you know who it is, talking about, oh, this team is so boring and all they do is just bring back the same people over and over and over again and like nothing ever changed. That's actually like not a bad thing sometimes. I love a transfer. You love a transfer?
Yeah.
I love a transfer.
I'm all about
a transfer. But you don't need to turn over your roster all the time to be successful in this league.
Well, the point I was making about that is like, you don't want to be that team necessarily.
No.
Like the teams that are having a lot of turnover in like changing their entire rosters and doing all these transfers.
It means shit's not hitting.
It means it's not hitting. Like that's why you have to do that, you know? So, transfers and roster movement like are super exciting, but I mean, you're right. Like it's not always a sign of like ambition or like a good thing to have to be doing that stuff. Atlanta United's a perfect example, in like San Jose too. Everyone's praising their off seasons and talking about how they had the best off seasons ever. I've been saying that I love Atlanta United's off season. The reason they had to do that is because they were bad.
They were very bad.
San Jose, insanely bad. Atlanta, very, very mid, below average compared to what they built. Beat Messi, but like realistically,
that was the crown jewel. Beat Messi.
Realistically, like Atlanta has not been what they build themselves as for like 5 years.
Yeah,
that's why they fired their sporting director, brought in Chris Henderson, and blew up their team this offseason.
Yeah,
because they were bad.
Yeah, I like. Frankly, it's all to say, like, I think it's between the Sounders and LAFC right now. I think the Galaxy might be a little bit of a dark horse. Here's my guess, because you were talking about, some random team's going to pop up. FC Dallas.
So save that.
Wrapping that up, holding it.
That's a topic for the Around the League section. But okay, last agenda, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
Craig Waibel cooked agenda. I'll let you take the floor here. Like, what is your?
He's tossing me the bone. He's like, oh, I know you were critical of Craig. Well, I was just trying to get some good discourse going.
Oh, okay.
But,
all right. I mean, I can give my take
I'll
on
go first.
Okay.
I'm not a coward.
Right.
I was critical. I've been quite critical, and I will eat my crow. I loved the Jesus Ferreira thing, and I've been praising that, so I won't eat crow about that. And Paul Arriola, I was a little bit like, I don't know. He's turned out to be a much better player than I think everyone gave him credit for, and he's just integrated with this team really well. And I don't know, I haven't seen Kim Keehee play, but he's there, he exists, he's an extra piece. And like, would I have loved another superstar? Yeah, but like, that's probably gonna happen in the summer when you get another U22. So like, I gotta be honest, like, I still don't love the Albert Rusnak re-signing. Jordan Morris being a DP, I'm like, kind of like, it's kind of fine at this point to me. But like, yeah, what are you gonna do? You can't just like let Albert walk. I mean, you could, but then it's like, it makes this whole... Anyway, that's all to say, given the circumstances, given what like we've all kind of learned as like the budget, the Sounders are very budget oriented. They're being talked about as like one of the best built teams, not just of like this year, but of all time, in depth and in like flexibility and the ability to get essentially 5 DPs. They may not be your Cucho or, your Boanga, but they're like 5 serviceable, really good DPs when you only are using, obviously 3 DP spots.
I think it's undeniable that he cooked with the Ferreira trade.
Yeah.
To be able to get Ferreira on TAM, I mean, it's a great trade. It's a great trade. I think we're gonna find out exactly how much he cooked when the games start. But I guess the thing with the Ferreira trade is that what I would say about it is that even if it doesn't work out, the process was sound.
Yeah.
And that's I think you hear
Leo
GMs
Chu turn up season 2025.
You hear GMs and coaches talk about this a lot though, process over results. The results oftentimes are out of your control, but if you are convicted in your process, you're convicted in your team's identity, and you know what types of players will work with your club and all that stuff, then if you are convicted in all that stuff and an acquisition doesn't work out, then you at least know that your process was sound.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those situations to me where it's like, it could be a total bust. Maybe Jesus Ferreira forgets how to play, or he goes out there and starts picking the ball up because he doesn't know how to play for a team that's not FC Dallas. I don't know. It could be a bust, but I would still understand the process entirely, even if it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, and I even said this, I think, on another podcast, if you want to go and have a billion signings every summer, go be a fan of another club. It's very clear that isn't what this team is anymore. And that's doesn't make me super happy all the time. And I'm going to chirp about it. So obviously I think everyone else should chirp about it. But, bringing shit back in hindsight, kind of taking a full preseason into consideration, we'll be able to bring up or down this agenda throughout the year. But I think I gotta say, he's like the Undertaker right now. He's sticking his hand up out of the ground. And I don't know. I think a lot of haters are going to have a lot of things to contend with.